The rain was falling in slow, cold drops on the metal streets of Orva's colony. Bright signs glowed in strange alien symbols, casting blue and green light over the crowded market. Humans were rare here, and Ethan Cross knew every eye was watching. He had come to Orvis for a simple job repairing a broken cargo ship. He planned to fix it, get paid, and leave before anyone noticed he was human. But that plan changed the moment he saw her. She was sitting on a low stone bench in the corner of the market. Her skin was pale silver, with faint glowing blue veins. Running along her neck and arms, her white hair fell in messy strands over her face and her eyes. Her eyes were not just sad, they were pleading. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Ethan slowed his steps, unsure why he couldn't look away. The alien girl was young, maybe in her late teens by human standards, but there was something fragile about her, something that made him think of a candle about to go out. An old alien merchant noticed where Ethan's eyes had gone. He walked closer and muttered in a low voice, "She's inactive." "Won't last more than 3 days?" Ethan frowned. "Inactive? What does that mean?" The merchant glanced around nervously before leaning in. Her kind must bond to survive. Without it, their life force fades. She has no mate. No bond. Her energy core is collapsing. Soon. She will die like the others. Ethan felt a strange chill crawl up his spine. "You mean, there's nothing you can do?" The merchant shook his head. "She's too far gone. Only a strong bond can save her now. And no one here will risk." Ethan's gaze returned to the girl. She was staring at the ground, clutching her knees as if trying to hold herself together. Her glowing veins flickered weakly, like a dying light. Something in Ethan told him to walk away. This wasn't his problem. He was just a mechanic, not a hero. But before he could turn, she lifted her head and looked directly at him, her eyes locked on his clear silver with a faint shimmer of blue. And for a moment, the noise of the market faded. It was like she was silently asking him something. A wordless plea, "Don't leave me here." Ethan's heart gave an uncomfortable twist. He took a slow step toward her, but before he could speak, a group of rough-looking alien men passed by. One of them spat near her feet and muttered, "Worthless, inactive." She flinched, but didn't say anything. She just pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders and lowered her head again. Ethan turned to the merchant. "Why is no one helping her? She's dying." The merchant sighed. "Helping her means binding yourself to her forever. Her kind once bonded share, life force, mind, and even pain. No one here wants to carry that burden, and a human. Well, you might be the only one strong enough to save her, but it would cost you." Ethan didn't understand what cost meant yet. But he knew one thing: if he walked away, she would be dead within days. As if sensing his hesitation, the merchant added quietly, "Be careful, human. Sometimes saving one life changes everything for better." Or worse. Ethan stood there, rain dripping from his hair, feeling the weight of a choice he didn't fully understand. Finally, he walked toward her. She noticed him approach and shifted slightly, her expression wary but not hostile. Up close, Ethan could see the faint trembling in her hands. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "You're human?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah. And you're in trouble." A small, bitter smile touched her lips. "You have no idea." Ethan crouched down so they were at eye level. "What's your name?" She hesitated, as if deciding whether she should. "Tell him, finally," she whispered. "Lyra." He offered his hand. "I'm Ethan." Lyra didn't take it. Instead, she looked away and murmured, "You shouldn't be here. If anyone sees you talking to me, they'll think you're claiming." "Me? Claiming you?" Ethan repeated, confused. She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. "I don't want to die," she said quietly. Almost too quiet to hear. Ethan felt the words like a punch to the chest before he could say anything more. A loud horn blared in the market, shops began closing. And people hurried indoors. Something was happening. Lyra's body tensed. "They come at night," she whispered. Her voice shaking, Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who comes?" Her gaze met his one last time. The collectors. To take the inactive away, before Ethan could react, heavy footsteps echoed through the street. Dark figures in armor moved between the stalls, scanning the crowd, and one of them pointed. Directly at Lyra, the armored figures moved through the market like predators. Their glowing visors scanned the crowd. Stopping only when they saw Lyra, Ethan felt her body tense beside him. Her thin hands gripped her shawl tighter, as if fabric could protect her from what was coming. One of the armored aliens barked an order in a language Ethan couldn't understand. Two others stepped forward, their weapons crackling with electric charge. Ethan moved in front of Lyra without thinking, blocking their path. "What do you want with her?" he demanded. The leader's visor shifted toward him. "This inactive is scheduled for removal. Step aside, human removal." Ethan repeated, his voice sharp. "You mean execution?" The alien didn't deny it. "It is the law. Females who reach critical energy loss must be taken away. Their condition is irreversible." Ethan's fists clenched. "How is killing them the solution?" The leader tilted his head slightly, as if Ethan had asked something stupid, too. "Spare resources. The inactive cannot work, cannot fight, cannot breed. They are a drain on the colony." Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. "Please, don't fight them. They'll kill you too." Ethan ignored her. "What if I bond with her? Will that save her?" The armored aliens froze. The leader stepped closer, his metallic boots clicking against the wet stone. "You would bind yourself to this creature. Do you even understand what that means?" Ethan kept his gaze steady. "I'm asking if it would save her life." The leader gave a slow, humorless laugh. "Yes, human. Your life force could stabilize her core for as long as you live. But once the bond is made, you will never be free. Her pain will be your pain. Her hunger, your hunger. Her death will be your death." Ethan's heart pounded. That was a chain with no lock, a choice you could never undo. The alien stepped back. "If you wish to ruin your life for this girl, claim her. The law will allow it. But know this, your people do not survive long with ours. The bond is not gentle. It will burn you from the inside out." Before Ethan could answer, the merchant from earlier appeared. He whispered quickly, "Ethan, think. This is not like taking care of a sick pet. Bonding is dangerous. Humans have tried before. Most did not last a month." Ethan looked at Lyra. She was staring at the ground, trembling. There was no hope in her eyes, only quiet acceptance. It was the look of someone who had already said goodbye to life. The armored leader gestured to his soldiers. "Time is over. Take her." Ethan's pulse spiked. "Wait. I'll take her," he said loudly, his voice echoing across the market. The crowd fell silent. Every head turned toward the human who had just spoken the unthinkable. The leader's visor flickered, recording Ethan's face. "You would claim her in front of witnesses?" "Yes," Ethan said firmly. "She's mine." A tense pause filled the air. Then the leader gave a slow nod. "By the law of this colony, she is now bound to you. Her life is yours to protect. If she dies, so do you." The soldiers stepped back, melting into the shadows of the closing market. The crowd slowly returned to its business, but Ethan could feel the stares. Some were curious, others disgusted. He didn't care. Lyra, however, looked at him in shock. "Why did you do that?" she asked quietly. "You don't even know me." Ethan shrugged slightly. "Didn't need to. I just know I couldn't watch you die." Her expression was unreadable. She pulled her shawl tighter. "You've made a mistake," she murmured. "The bond hasn't been done yet. Until it's complete, my life is still slipping away." Ethan frowned. What do we need to do? She hesitated, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. It's not something I can explain here. It's private and dangerous. If done wrong, it could kill us both. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That's comforting, he said dryly. But inside, he felt the tension tightening in his chest. The merchant came closer again, slipping a small device into Ethan's hand. This will lead you to the bonding hall. Only there can the ritual be done safely. He whispered, go quickly. The girl doesn't have much time. Lyra's legs were weak. So Ethan supported her as they left the market. The streets grew quieter, darker. Lit only by the strange alien lanterns, Ethan glanced at her pale face. 72 hours, right? He asked, Lyra's lips curved in a faint, bitter smile. Not anymore. After tonight? I might have less than 24. Ethan's grip tightened on her arm. Whatever this bonding was, whatever danger it carried, he had just stepped into something far bigger than himself. And somewhere deep in the shadows, a figure followed. Them, watching, waiting, and clearly unhappy that Lyra had been saved. The rain had stopped, but the air in Orvis Colony still smelled of damp metal and smoke. Ethan guided Lyra down the narrow streets, the strange device from the merchant blinking faintly in his hand. Its small blue light pulsed in rhythm, pointing. The way toward the so-called bonding hall. Lyra's steps were unsteady. Every few meters, she stumbled. And Ethan had to catch her. Her skin felt colder now, her glowing blue veins flickering faintly. It was like watching a light slowly fade out. You need to sit, Ethan said, but she shook her head weakly. If I stop. It will get worse, she whispered. They turned into a quieter district. Far from the noisy market, the buildings here were older, their walls covered in alien vines that pulsed faintly with their own glow. The streets were empty too empty. Ethan's instincts screamed that they were being watched. He glanced behind them. A shadow moved between the rooftops, too fast to be a trick of the light. Whoever it was had been following since the market. Finally, they stopped in front of a tall, curved structure made of black stone and silver plating. A large door stood at the center, marked with strange, swirling patterns. The device in Ethan's hand beeped twice before going dark. This is it? Ethan asked. Lyra nodded slowly. This is where it has to happen. He pushed the heavy door open, and they stepped into a dimly lit chamber. The air inside was warm and thick, with a strange sweet scent. Glowing lines traced across the floor, forming intricate patterns that converged at a circular platform in the center. Lyra moved toward it, her voice barely above a whisper. Once we start, there is no turning back. Ethan stepped closer. Then tell me exactly what I'm agreeing to. She looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether he deserved the truth. My people's bond is not just physical. It connects our life forces, our minds, and our emotions. If I am hurt, you will feel it. If you die, I die too. Ethan frowned. That sounds less like a relationship and more like a chain. Lyra gave a faint, sad smile. To us, it's survival. She stepped onto the platform and gestured for him to join her. But before he could move, a deep voice echoed from the shadows of the hall. Human. The voice said coldly. Ethan turned to see a tall alien emerge from the dark, broad shoulders. Dark armor and eyes like polished steel. He carried a long, curved blade at his side. Lyra's face drained of what little color she had left. Rin. She whispered. Ethan glanced at her. You know him? Her voice trembled. He's my clan leader. Rin stepped forward, his gaze locked on Ethan. You've made a foolish choice, human. Do you know what you are binding yourself to? I know enough, Ethan replied sharply. I'm saving. Her life. Rin's lips curved in something that might have been a smirk. She doesn't need saving. She needs to accept her fate. Weakness has no place in our bloodline. Ethan stepped in front of Lyra. You call letting her die strength. Rin ignored him and addressed Lyra directly. You think this human can carry your bond? T will burn out before the moon cycle ends. Then you will die anyway, and so will he. Lyra's eyes flickered with pain, but her voice was steady. I would rather die trying than do nothing. Rin's expression hardened. You defy me. And you bring a stranger into our sacred hall. That alone is reason enough to end you both. He drew his blade with a hiss of metal. The glowing patterns on the floor seemed to react, pulsing faster, as if sensing danger. Ethan tensed, ready to fight, but Lyra stepped forward weakly, her voice calm despite the situation. If you kill him, my death will be certain within hours. If you let us finish the bond, you will never have to see me again. Rin hesitated, the tip of his blade lowering slightly. He studied Ethan for a moment, before finally speaking, very well. But know this, human, you take her curse. She is yours to protect. Fail, and you both will perish. He turned and left the hall, disappearing into the darkness. The heavy silence that followed was almost as suffocating as his presence. Ethan exhaled slowly. Charming guy, he muttered. Lyra gave a weak laugh. That was mercy. By his standards, she stepped back onto the platform, motioning for him to join her. The bonding requires full trust. You will have to open your mind to me completely. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And if I don't? Then it won't work, she said simply, and we'll both die. Ethan walked toward her, his boots clicking on the glowing patterns. He wasn't sure if this was bravery or insanity. But as he looked at her pale, trembling, fighting for every breath, he knew he couldn't walk away. She placed her hands against his chest. Her touch was cold, but there was a strange spark beneath it. When I say now, let go of every wall in your mind, she instructed. Ethan nodded once. But before she could start, the sound of distant footsteps echoed through the hall. Multiple footsteps, fast, heavy, and coming closer. Lyra's eyes widened. They're not supposed to be here, she whispered urgently. Ethan turned toward the door, his instincts flaring. Who? Her voice was barely audible. The ones who kill humans that bond with us. The pounding footsteps grew louder, echoing against the curved walls of the bonding hall. Ethan turned toward the entrance, every muscle in his body tensing. The heavy door swung open, and a group of armed aliens stormed inside, 6 of them, armored in black and carrying long rifles that hummed with deadly energy. Lyra's grip on Ethan's arm tightened, her eyes wide with fear. They're enforcers, she whispered. They hunt humans who break our laws. And bonding with me is the greatest crime to them. Ethan stepped in front of her, his body shielding hers. What's their problem? Your own law says I can claim you. Lyra shook her head quickly. Only if my clan approves. And Rin's approval doesn't mean the others will obey. The lead enforcer stepped forward, his visor reflecting the dim glow of the floor patterns. His voice was sharp and mechanical. Human, step away from the girl. This is your only warning. Ethan's mind raced it. He fought. They'd probably kill him if he surrendered. Lyra would be taken. And she'd die before sunrise, either way. He had no good option. He glanced back at her. How much time do you have left? Her lips trembled. Hours. Maybe less. The lead enforcer took another step forward. Raising his weapon, Ethan could see the faint glow of its charge building. But before he could act, Lyra suddenly grabbed his face in both hands. Her voice was urgent, desperate. We do it now. Bonding will give me the strength to fight beside you. Ethan's eyes widened. You mean in the middle of this? Her glowing veins were flickering dangerously now. If we wait, I die. If we start, they might not be able to stop us in time. The enforcers began to spread out. Circling them, Ethan made his decision. Fine. Tell me what to do, Lyra. Pulled him onto the circular platform, the glowing floor patterns brightening at their presence. Close your eyes. Open your mind. Don't fight what you feel, she instructed. Her voice trembled, but there was a strange, steady strength beneath it. Ethan shut his eyes. He felt her hands press against his chest, cold at first. Then warm. A low hum filled the air. Platform's patterns shifting, moving like flowing water under his feet. Lyra's voice echoed not in his ears, but in his head. Can you hear me? Ethan flinched. This is you. In my mind, her mental voice was faint. Fragile. Yes. Keep your mind open. Let me in, he hesitated, feeling her presence touch the edges of his thoughts. It was strange, like someone lightly pressing on a locked door in his head. Finally, he let the door open. The moment he did, a rush of sensations hit him, her fear, her exhaustion, her will to survive. He saw flashes of her memories, cold nights alone in the market, the sound of her clan's laughter when they called her weak, and then the sharp, constant ache of her fading life force. Ethan gritted his teeth. How do we finish this? Her mental voice grew stronger. Now, you give me part of your life. Not your blood, your energy. Your fire. He didn't know how, but instinct guided him. He focused on her, willing his strength toward her like pushing warmth into freezing hands. The patterns under them glowed brighter, wrapping their bodies in spirals of blue and silver light. The enforcers finally realized what was happening. Stop them. The leader roared. Two of them fired. Bolts of red energy shot across the hall. But the glowing floor flared, forming a dome of light around Ethan and Lyra. The shots exploded harmlessly against it. Ethan could feel his strength draining his legs trembling, sweat running down his back. But Lyra's presence in his mind grew warmer, brighter, stronger. Her trembling stopped. Her glowing veins pulsed steadily. Her voice filled his head again, softer now. Almost there. Ethan. Just a little more. Outside the dome, the enforcers kept firing, their weapons sending shockwaves through the floor. One of them tried to break through, but the light burned his armor, forcing him back with a scream. Ethan's breathing grew heavy. He felt dizzy, his vision flickering. Lyra. He muttered aloud, I don't know how much longer I can. She pressed her forehead against his, her silver eyes glowing bright. You've already done more than anyone ever has for me, she whispered. Her words carried not just gratitude, but a strange, pull-in, unspoken promise that they were no longer separate beings. The light reached its peak, flooding the hall in a blinding glow. The enforcers shielded their eyes, shouting in confusion. And then, a light vanished. Ethan staggered, his knees nearly giving out. Lyra caught him, her hands warm and steady. Now, her glowing veins shone brighter than ever, her posture strong, her breathing deep. She was alive. Fully alive. But before Ethan could speak, the lead enforcer raised his weapon again. Bond complete, he growled. Then you both die. Together. Lyra stepped in front of Ethan this time, her voice like steel. Try, she said coldly. And the glow around her hands flared, shaping into sharp, blade-like energy. The hall pulsed with tension. The enforcers adjusted their stances. Weapons? Humming with lethal energy, Ethan steadied himself behind Lyra, still recovering from the energy he had given her. But there was no mistaking it. She was no longer weak, no longer trembling. Her silver eyes locked on the leader. You will not take us, she said firmly, her voice carrying a strange resonance that made even the air feel heavier. The leader scoffed. You think a completed bond makes you untouchable? Humans break. And when he breaks, you both fall. Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand, and the glow around her fingers flared brighter. Forming a blade of pure energy, The humming sound it made was sharp and threatening. Ethan blinked in surprise. "Were you always able to do that?" Her lips curved into the faintest smirk. "Not without a bond strong enough to feed me," she replied without taking her eyes off the enforcers. The leader gave a signal. 2 enforcers charged forward, their boots pounding against the glowing floor. Lyra moved with a speed Ethan hadn't seen before she sidestepped the first attacker, her energy blade slicing through his weapon like it was made of glass. The second swung a heavy staff toward her, but she blocked it effortlessly. Sparks flying as metal met energy, Ethan watched in disbelief. It wasn't just that she was fast, her movements were precise, almost elegant. The flicker of her glowing veins kept perfect rhythm with each strike, but there were still too many of them. Ethan's instincts screamed that he couldn't just stand back. He scanned the floor until he spotted a fallen rifle from the first enforcer she had disarmed. He grabbed it, feeling the strange weight of alien metal in his hands. He aimed at the enforcer, trying to flank her. The weapon's trigger was different from human design, but he figured it out just in time. A bolt of blue energy shot out, slamming into the attacker's shoulder and spinning him to the ground. "Nice shot," Lyra called out without looking. Ethan gave a short laugh. "Guess I'm more than just your battery pack." The leader stepped forward now, clearly realizing brute force wasn't working. He drew a long, curved blade from his back, the edge glowing faintly red. "This ends now," he said, voice low and dangerous. Lyra's stance shifted. "Stay back, Ethan," she murmured. Her body lowered slightly, ready for his strike. The leader moved like a shadow, fast and controlled. Their blades clashed, sending a shockwave through the hall that made Ethan stumble. The floors glowing, lines pulsed brighter, as if feeding off the fight. It was clear this wasn't just about stopping them, this was personal. Ethan noticed the way the leader's attacks targeted not just to kill, but to humiliate, and Lyra. She wasn't fighting just to survive, she was fighting to prove something. "You were always weak," the leader hissed between strikes, "even with a human strength inside you. You will fall." Lyra's eyes flashed. "Then why are you the one retreating?" With a sudden surge, she knocked his blade aside and slammed her palm against his chest. A burst of energy erupted from her hand, sending him flying backward across the hall. The remaining enforcers hesitated their confidence. Cracking, Ethan saw his chance. He fired the rifle again, forcing them to scatter behind the pillars. But then, a low alarm began to sound somewhere deep in the hall. Lyra's expression darkened. "They've called for reinforcements. We can't fight them all." Ethan nodded. "Then we run." She moved to the side wall, pressing her hand against a hidden panel. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage lit by dim blue lights. "This leads outside the colony," she said quickly. "We can hide in the outer rings until I'm strong enough to travel." They darted into the passage just as the heavy door behind them burst open again. More armored figures poured into the hall, their shouts echoing against the stone. The door panel slid shut, sealing them into the narrow tunnel. Ethan's breathing was heavy. "Okay, so bonding with you comes with a few enemies," he said between breaths. Lyra glanced at him. "Those men weren't my only enemies. Now they're yours too." They moved deeper into the passage until they reached a split. Lyra hesitated for a moment before choosing the left path. "The right leads to the docks," she explained. "They'll expect us to go there. The left takes us to the abandoned outer district." The tunnel eventually opened into a small chamber with a cracked skylight. Cold night air poured in, carrying the faint sound of the city above. Ethan leaned against the wall. "You said earlier, this bond ties us together. How strong is that connection?" Lyra stepped closer, her voice quieter now. "Strong enough that I can feel your heartbeat." Ethan blinked. "That's kind of creepy. Her lips twitched in a small smile. "And I can feel your fear," she added softly, "but also your resolve. You really don't regret saving me." He shook his head, not even a little, for the first time since he'd met her. Lyra's expression softened completely. "Then I'll protect you, Ethan. Even if it means crossing every line my people forbid." But before either of them could say more, a faint red glow appeared in the skylight above, not sunlight. "Search drones." Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. "They've already found us." The faint red glow above the cracked skylight grew brighter. Ethan's stomach tightened. The low hum of the drones was getting louder. They were closing in. Fast, Lyra's eyes darted to the shadows around them. "We can't stay here," she whispered urgently. "If they lock on to our life signatures, they'll deploy hunters within minutes." Ethan glanced up at the skylight. "Can we get through it before they arrive?" She shook her head. "Too risky. The drones above will have snipers." "We go underground," without another word. Lyra moved to a corner of the chamber and pressed her palm against the wall. The stone shifted with a slow, grinding sound, revealing a narrow, downward shaft lit by faint blue veins of crystal. "Drop down," she ordered. Ethan hesitated only for a moment before lowering himself into the shaft. Sliding into the darkness, Lyra followed silently, sealing the entrance above them. The shaft opened into a long, damp corridor lined with old pipes. The air was heavy with moisture, and every sound seemed amplified. Ethan could hear the pounding of his own heartbeat. "And winding you, and when you kiss. Only kiss, only ruby kiss. Only ruby kiss has the luxurious texture that glides on smoothly. And Weasley age, it is live, Moozy lies, Moozy lies. And Weezy, and ever, you see, it is prow. HM6, we see so you I will ease a ref. It is sicken, not say to lef, but with K of Kyrie and, we're lie side. By lively said, canide lie side. It is unsad kai it is sick agrees it be because I see kites I let it guide I abide as seduce it and I did sit to be like click a stick but this keep faintly hers too. The bond made their presence more than just physical. It was like she was in his mind, breathing beside his thoughts. They moved quickly, their footsteps echoing on the metal floor. Ethan kept his rifle ready. Lyra moved ahead, her glowing veins casting a soft light that guided them. But she suddenly stopped, lifting her hand for silence. From somewhere ahead came a faint clicking sound, a mechanical organic. Ethan frowned. "What is that?" He whispered. Lyra's expression hardened. "Hunters, not drones." "Living weapons," Ethan's grip on the rifle tightened. "How bad are they?" She glanced back at him. "They don't stop until you're dead, and they can smell fear." The clicking grew louder. Closer, Ethan could now see movement in the shadows ahead. Tall, spider-like creatures with glistening black armor and multiple glowing eyes, their long bladed forelimbs scraped against the walls as they moved. There were 3 of them, spreading out to block the corridor. One hissed, the sound sharp and metallic. Ethan raised his rifle and fired. The shot slammed in 2. The creature's chest, knocking it back, but it didn't fall. It shrieked and lunged forward even faster. "Move!" Lyra shouted, grabbing Ethan's arm and pulling him to the side passage just before the creature's blades tore into the floor where he had been standing. They ran, twisting through the maze of tunnels, the hunters clattering after them with terrifying speed. Ethan fired over his shoulder, managing to hit one in the leg, slowing it down. But the other 2 were relentless, leaping across walls and ceiling to close the distance. "This isn't working," Ethan shouted. "They're faster than us." Lyra's voice was sharp. "Then we make them slower. give me your hand." Ethan didn't have time to argue. She grabbed his wrist. And he felt a sudden surge of heat through the bond. Her energy flared into his arm. Down into the rifle, when he fired this time, the shot exploded into a burst of bright blue light that engulfed the corridor. The two lead hunters screeched in pain, their armored skin cracking under the blast. One fell completely, twitching violently before going still. The other staggered but kept moving. Slower now. Ethan blinked in shock. That was new. Lyra didn't slow down. The bond gives us more than shared life. It lets us combine strength. Don't forget that they burst into a wider chamber where the tunnel split 3 ways. Lyra hesitated for a fraction of a second before pointing left. This way leads to the outer district's ruins. If we make it there, we can lose them in the old buildings. But before they could move, deafening crash echoed behind them. The last hunter had smashed through the wall instead of following the tunnels. It landed between them and their escape, its multiple eyes glowing brighter, its bladed limbs raised. "Hi!" Ethan lifted the rifle, but Lyra stepped in front of him. "This one's mine," she said coldly. The hunter lunged, and Lyra met it head-on, her energy blade forming instantly in her hands. They clashed in a storm of sparks and glowing cuts, her movements fast and precise. Ethan circled around, trying to find a clear shot, but they moved too quickly. The creature slashed downward, and Lyra blocked, the impact forcing her to one knee. Ethan saw his chance. He aimed and fired directly at its head. The blast tore through its armor, sending it crashing to the floor in a heap of twitching limbs. Lyra exhaled heavily. "Nice timing," she said, a faint smile breaking through her focus. They didn't wait to rest together. They ran down the left tunnel. The air grew colder, and soon they could see faint moonlight ahead. They emerged into the open ruins of the outer district, broken buildings, cracked streets, and tall alien grass swaying in the night wind. For a moment, there was silence except for their breathing. Ethan scanned the shadows. "You think we lost them?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, they'll keep coming. But now we fight on our terms." Ethan gave her a sharp look. "What does that mean?" Her eyes glimmered in the moonlight. "It means I'm strong enough to protect you now. But to end this, we'll have to go back inside the colony and face them where they can't hide behind laws." Ethan exhaled. "That sounds a lot like suicide." She smiled faintly. "Only if we fail." From far behind them, the sound of skew. Distant clicking began again. The hunters were not finished, and the night was far from over. The cold wind of the outer district carried the faint but sharp sound of clicking. Ethan could feel it through the bond knot just with his ears. But as a prickling sensation in his mind, the hunters were tracking them again. Moving fast through the ruins, Lyra stopped beside the broken shell of an old building, her glowing veins pulsed brighter now. She turned to Ethan, her voice steady but low. "If we keep running, they'll wear us down." "We end it here." Ethan glanced at her. "You sure about that?" "Because last I checked, they had numbers, claws, and 0. Sense of mercy." She gave a faint, determined smile. "And now?" "I have you." They took position in the ruined building's wide doorway. The moonlight spilled in, casting long shadows across the cracked floor. Ethan checked the rifle's charge. It was low. Maybe enough for 3 or 4 more shots. Lyra's energy blade hummed softly in her hands, glowing like a small piece of a star. The clicking grew louder. From the darkness between collapsed walls, the first hunter crawled into view. Its many eyes gleamed red, its limbs scraping the stone as it pulled itself forward. 2 more followed, their bodies moving in unnerving, spider-like motions. Ethan raised his rifle. Lyra stepped forward. Through the bond, he could feel her calm but fierce focus. She was ready to kill for him, maybe even die for him. The first hunter lunged, and Ethan fired. The shot hit it in the chest, but instead of falling, it leaped higher. Aiming for Lyra, she spun aside and sliced upward, cutting through one of its limbs in a burst of sizzling sparks. It screeched and hit the ground, flailing. The second hunter went for Ethan. He barely rolled aside in time, its blade smashing into the floor where his head had been. He aimed upward and shot point-blank into its face. The light from the blast lit the room like lightning, and the creature collapsed in a heap. The third one didn't attack immediately, circled. Watching them both with its multiple eyes, Lyra's breath was steady. "He's the smart one," she muttered. Ethan frowned. "Great. Out of all the things trying to kill us, we get the one with brains." The hunter suddenly darted to the side, trying to flank them. Ethan turned to shoot, but Lyra grabbed his hand, flooding him with her energy. "Now?" she said, and together they unleashed a single blinding blast from the rifle. The shot tore through the air like a comet, hitting the hunter square in the chest. It let out a high, piercing scream before collapsing in silence. For a moment, the ruins were still. Ethan lowered the rifle, breathing hard. That was all of them. Lyra shook her head slowly. "No. The hunters are never alone. Someone sent them, someone who still wants me dead." Ethan didn't need to guess. "Who?" "Rin," he said. Lyra nodded. "He won't stop unless I'm no longer a threat. And now, with you, I am." They both knew what that meant. If they wanted freedom, they had to face him directly. They made their way back toward the colony under cover of night. Lyra led Ethan through hidden routes until they reached the bonding hall again. This time, the doors were already open, and inside, Rin was waiting. He stood alone in the center, his curved blade gleaming in the dim light. "You came back," he said, his tone almost amused. "Good. Saves me the trouble of hunting you." Ethan stepped forward. "We're not running anymore." Rin's gaze shifted to Lyra. "You think the bond makes you strong? Let's see how strong you are when he's bleeding at your feet." Without another word, he attacked, fast, precise, his strikes aimed to kill. Lyra met him head-on, energy blade clashing against his weapon in a storm of sparks. Through the bond, Ethan felt every strain in her muscles, every sharp burst of pain when their blades connected. Rin was strong, but he wasn't expecting Ethan to fight too, while Lyra kept him engaged. Ethan circled behind and swung the butt of the rifle into his side. Rin stumbled, and Lyra seized the opening. Her blade slashed across his chest in a burst of blue light. He dropped to one knee. His armor scorched and cracked. His eyes narrowed. "You've chosen your death," he growled. Lyra stood over him, her blade pointed at his throat. "No. I've chosen my life," she said firmly, "and it's bound to his." For a long moment, Rin held her gaze. Then, without a word, he dropped his weapon and stepped back. "This isn't over," he said coldly, before turning and walking into the shadows. When they were alone, Ethan finally let his shoulders relax. "You think he'll come after us again?" Lyra gave a tired but genuine smile. "Probably. But as long as the bond holds, not afraid." Ethan smirked slightly. "Guess we're stuck with each other." She stepped closer, her hand finding his. "Not stuck," she said softly. "Chosen, bound, forever, through the bond." Ethan felt her warmth, her gratitude, and something deeper, a promise that no matter how many enemies came, they would face them together. And somewhere deep inside, he knew he wouldn't have it any other way.